Hi everyone, this video is to go over what was discussed at the toxicity testing launch meeting that Hawksley did last Friday the 19th of January. It's for those that couldn't attend and for those that want to go over some of the content again. In brief, Hawksley will be releasing a range of supplies and consumables for the Andrology Lab that will have been toxicity tested prior to delivery. This will enable labs to save themselves the hassle of having to toxicity test these things themselves. So what we will do in the course of this presentation is talk about the problem that we identified across UK Andrology Labs and our solution to it. We'll tie this in with the supply offering, so what consumables we will be providing. Then we'll move on to some of the more technical elements of how you will onboard with us, how you will validate the quality of our supplies. We'll touch on how this works with UCAS and ISO regulations. The final part of the talk will be a little step-by-step guide to how to order with us. We'll give some details on the pricing and we will then conclude the meeting.
So as andrology specialists, we spent a lot of time talking to different labs across the country, and a common thread that was coming up in a lot of the conversations that we were having was the pressure and the stress of toxicity testing, because it takes a lot of time to do, and that's often the time that labs just don't have. And a lot of labs struggle with poor semen samples as well, which isn't exactly conducive to great toxicity testing. Another couple of issues that we see across the board when it comes to the methodology of toxicity testing as it stands right now is that not all andrology labs are UCAS accredited, which does account for some variation. And toxicity testing is also completed manually in a lot of labs, and human subjectivity is just going to be involved in that. Not everyone can have access to a CASA for a variety of reasons. Another issue that we think is really important to highlight is that the toxicity testing that is being done right now is just a duplication across the UK. So labs could be buying the same supplies from the same batch, and then they're all going back and toxicity testing it separately. For example, if Blackpool and Cornwall bought the same pots, they're then going back and doing the toxicity testing. So it's just duplicating work that doesn't actually need to be done so many times. So these were the biggest issues that we saw and where we wanted to find a solution. So this is where we came up with a solution that we've been working on for about the last year or so. So we're going to be providing all of our suppliers with reports on how our supplies affect sperm motility and survival. We will provide a clear protocol for using our supplies and still being compliant with your ISO 15189 obligations. This testing will be done by a third-party independent lab who are Buckinghamshire NHS. They are UCAS accredited and they use a CASA to verify their findings. In the long term, we'll also be looking at building evidence of how all the supplies we offer perform over time in different exposure conditions. We'll also be offering extra services such as pot weighing. So what is it that we'll be offering? We're going to be starting off by offering 2 different collection pots, glassware and plasticware consumables. This includes microtubes, pasture pipettes, microscope slides, cover glass, positive displacement pipettes of 2 brands, so both Rainin and Gilson, some disposable slides and some air displacement pipette tips as well. The way that we decided on these consumables, we sent off a lot of pots especially to different labs across the country and got them to fill out a survey of what they liked, what they didn't like and what their favourites were, and this is how we have collated this collection for you guys today.
So moving on to the question of onboarding with Hawksley, the ultimate objective of our service will be that no andrology lab that buys supplies from us will have to do toxicity testing as their routine workload. However, ISO 15189 states that every lab is responsible for ensuring the safety of its consumables in terms of its toxicity towards sperm. What this means in practicality is that when you are validating and onboarding with us, you are responsible for making sure that what we say is correct at the outset of when you purchase for us. So we've released an SOP for how this can be done, and there's a lot of detail in there. In short, though, validation can be completed by following the following steps. So when you get the first couple of orders from Hawksley, your lab should be conducting a comprehensive toxicity test in line with how you currently do this anyway. So it would just be the same process that you follow at the moment. Then what you would do is you compare your internal report with Hawksley's official report and look at any differences, any discrepancies that are in there. And then this will impact how you define your acceptance criteria for Hawksley supplies moving forward. Once you've done this, you're in the clear. You can order from Hawksley and you can use our reports as evidence that you have got good quality supplies that aren't toxic to sperm. The third point that we've added here is that every couple of years, or perhaps every 3 years, you may want to do a quick validation of all your Hawksley supplies and then get perhaps an inexperienced member of staff to do this for training and competency purposes, as it's a key part of any andrologist job. And it also shows your UCAS accreditor that you are still concerned and still validating the quality of the supplies that you are buying. I would like to preface this slide by way of an apology. I'm going to go into quite a lot of detail about the standard operating procedure and how your lab will validate the quality of Hawksley supplies with us. Saying that, we will be doing one-to-one consultations with people between your lab and an independent andrologist, probably Matt Tomlinson, just to discuss the nuances that you might have with onboarding with us and any sort of concerns that would be individual to you. However, this operating procedure that we have is pretty comprehensive and should have a lot of relevance to what you're doing. So to start off with the process, we are working with a single lab to do all of the toxicity testing, and this is Buckinghamshire NHS. It was agreed between ourselves and UCAS assessors that in terms of continuity of methodology and continuity of environment, having the same lab would be the best way of providing the service. On top of this, Buckinghamshire have got a CASA, specifically SAMI, that they will be doing all of their testing with. The reason for this, again, was discussed with UCAS assessors, is it reduces uncertainty, improves objectivity, and it allows us to provide video files to send to all of your services about how testing has been done. So in terms of the exposure limits that we will be testing on all of the supplies, it will vary from consumable to consumable, but we have been very rigorous with the intervals in which we're testing. So to give an example, a standard collection pot would be tested at the 1 hour mark, the 4 hour mark, and the 24 hour mark. We're aware that most services don't test to 24 hours, some of them maybe not even to 4, but in terms of the flexibility that it gives a lab and the rigorousness that our reporting offers by including this really helps. And then other consumables such as a pipette tip would only be exposed for a maximum of a couple of minutes. So our test only goes up to a 10-minute period there. All of the testing will be done in relation to a NUNC tube. This is because we've got a lot of data on how this performs and is non-toxic towards sperm, and also a previous batch. All of the tests will be done in triplicate, just to be very sure that there is no discrepancy in data. And finally, a question that came up in the launch meeting was whether the testing will be done with washed sperm or with raw semen. So we're aware that there's lots of difference within the UK around what the best practice is here. What we've chosen to do is go with the recommendations from the sperm toxicity testing UK best practice guideline that was written by Stuart Long, Brian Woodward and Matt Tomlinson. So they argue that washed sperm is a better medium for toxicity testing because it's a consistent environment, it is more homogeneous, and because the biochemistry varies from patient to patient with raw semen, there's a more consistent environment which will affect the outcome of testing in a positive way. However, what I want to add to this is we're very aware that it's about a 50-50 split in terms of how people will do their toxicity testing in the UK, and we're not asking people to take sides on the matter. You will, when you validate with us, you will still test using your own methodology, and you will compare to our report. So if you're testing with raw semen, you will see how the raw semen toxicity test compares to our washed semen toxicity test, and you will have an acceptance criteria based on that. So there is nothing really to worry about in terms of this, and UCAS assessors accept both methodologies around the UK as long as they evidence why they do them. So moving on to how you would validate our samples. There's more detail in the SOP on this, but just as a way of a quick example, if Hawksley reported a 94% survival rate a 94% progressive motility in one of its consumables, and you did a test and you identified a 96% progressive motility, then when you came to reorder with us, Hawksley said that there was a 91% progressive motility in the same sample, and you did a test and you came to the conclusion that there was a 93% progressive motility. Then if your acceptance criteria was, say, 85%, you would just adjust for the difference that you have between Hawksley supplies. So your acceptance criteria would be 83% for any Hawksley supply in that category, or perhaps even 83.5% to be sure. So that's how you would validate after a couple of tests. I mean, there are nuances in how you would be doing in-house testing, so we can talk through that in a little bit more detail in a one-to-one, but it gives you a flavour of what the plan is there. Finally, and quite importantly, I want to talk about batch rejection and the limitations of our service. So Hawksley is and has thought a lot about how this will be put together, how we eliminate any risk of providing consumables that aren't of the quality that you would expect. However, we've got a mechanism for if there are any discrepancies found. So we would employ an independent auditor to have a look at the root cause of why there was a discrepancy. So let's say that Hawksley said there was a 90% progressive motility in a sperm collection pot, and you were observing 60%, making it unviable for you to use. We would look at a few different options of what was the root cause here. So was it the storage conditions at our premises or yours? What was the delivery conditions like? Was there an issue with Hawksley's in-house testing, or was there an issue with the lab's in-house testing, so your in-house testing? So once this had been done, we would then establish what was wrong, and we would either give you a full refund for the supplies if it was identified to be Hawksley's fault, in terms of delivery, in terms of testing, all of this kind of stuff. And if it was an issue that we thought your lab was having, then we'd be happy to give you a little bit of support on doing toxicity testing again, and having better practices for doing your tox testing. So there's lots of mechanisms, and I won't go into the full detail here about what would happen in terms of a product recall if we were providing something that wasn't what we said it to be, and we can issue full refunds, we can do replacements. So there's lots of detail in here, and I think the final thing that I want to say on this slide is that Whilst Hawksley is committed to doing everything possible to provide excellent quality supplies, so we can offer advice, we can be robust in our toxicity testing, we can manage our stock environment well, we can signpost services to excellent consultants to improve their internal tox testing, and we can create and support you with building your own SOP and sharing ours like this one. And as I mentioned earlier, it is still the lab's responsibility to control the quality of their supplies. So you still need to be able to evidence to UCAS that you have done your due diligence on our supplies, that they are of the right quality, and if you fail to do so, that cannot be Hawksley's responsibility. Yeah, so I think that's covered everything. I appreciate that it was a bit dense, but yeah, thank you very much for listening to this part of the talk. We will now move on to how you can order with us.
So next steps is on how to order with us. So first things first, place your PO. You've already been sent a document with the price list and also what product codes you're looking for. Now, the really integral part about this is that toxicity testing will currently be done twice a year. So we would recommend you placing an order with us that will last for 6 months plus a little bit of buffer. We'll be accepting the POs for the first batch up until March the 1st this year. After this happens, we will then order the supplies listed in the PO to Hawksley from a single batch to match the orders placed. And when those supplies come to us, we'll be sending products off for testing and reporting. Once these have been tested, we'll send your order out to you, complete with a toxicity tested report, and it will also be recorded with SAMI, so the CASTA system. This is just for your records, so you've got extra evidence. And this will be sent out to you by June, at which point you do the validation, which we've spoken to you about already. So we're saying June at the moment, just so we've got the most amount of time to make sure the entire process is smooth, do any retesting that we need to, as this is the first batch coming out. Now, question was asked in the live meeting, can we do more than twice a year? At the moment, we are really trying to solidify the process and get it as smooth as possible. As we build on this and we build evidence, we are looking to increase the frequency at which we do this, and at some point in the future, we'll be hoping that you can place a PO at any time for toxicity tested supplies.
So this slide displays our price list for all of the consumables in this service. We should have shared a price list with everybody already, although if you haven't got it, please get in touch with me, Tash, or our general inquiries email address and request one. Tash has already gone through this before, but you'll find air displacement tips, positive displacement pipette tips, collection pots, cover slips, glass slides, disposable slides, and microtubes as well. So there is pretty much everything that you would expect to see here. If after looking at the price list you have concerns with affordability, then don't worry, we have got a bit of a plan in place to support you with this. We understand that in comparison to NHS supply chain, we really struggle to compete on price because we are doing the addition of tox testing, and on top of that we don't have the economies of scale. However, what we can do is if you are looking to purchase medium reagents or any equipment for your lab, then we were very happy to look at offering you a bundle to give you a good discount on, for example, your sperm prep media, your morphology staining, your quality control beads, that kind of thing. So if affordability is a concern, or if just in general you want to get all of your supplies from one place, get in touch with me directly and we can have a talk about discounts and giving you a wider package that makes it more affordable for you. So I'd like to take a moment to thank everybody for listening to this presentation. If you have any questions, please get in touch with myself, with Tash, or with our general inquiries email address, which is inquiries@hawksley.co.uk. Alternatively, you can give us a call on our landline, which is 01903 752 815. We're available between 9 and 5, Monday to Friday. So thanks very much.